Is your mic live? Yeah. Uh-oh.
We are now. Hello, check.
Good. Good to go. Do you want to start, or you want me to kick off? Oh,
Go ahead.
yeah. Okay. So I'd just like to have our panelists introduce themselves and kind of tell a little bit about what their interest in being involved in this conversation really is. And that might be a really big, challenging question, but Cheryle, would you like to start? Tell us about you and your background and your interest here.
Okay, awesome. Hello, everybody. How are you? Well, I bring you greetings from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for having me. And let's give Micah a round of applause, because he's done a really great job of putting this together and bringing us here. So I am from, I said Atlanta, Grady Baby, if you will, and I am a number of things. I'm an activist, I'm a front-end developer, I'm an author of a book that I recently published at the first of the year. I also run a film festival, as he said, and I'm a spiritualist, brought up in the Christian church, Baptist, going to church every Sunday. If you lived in my mama's household, you went to church every Sunday. And so, yes, and I'm here to talk, to be a part of this discussion, because I have gotten revelations in my evolution as a person. So I love what the young lady who's doing the work on aging. I'm very proud to say that I'll be 61 in December. And so I have pretty good genes, if I should say so myself, but always looking for that extension. But one thing, my book is called God Told Me to Tell You to Put That Damn Bible Down. And you can find it on Amazon, and I have it in print edition and as a digital book. But being brought up in the church, I always questioned a lot of things about the Bible. You know, Adam and Eve, that a woman was developed from a rib of a guy. And I'm saying a dude couldn't have a baby. He couldn't stand the pain of a baby, let alone a human form from his rib. But that's another discussion. But I asked God the question of why were we here? It doesn't make sense for us to be born, live on earth, and then die. I mean, what would be the purpose of that? And in asking, you know, folks growing up, because we believe what we believe because we're told to. You're born in a family, whatever religion that is, that's what you are you grow up to know. But in asking the question, my answer came that we come to earth just like we send our kids to nursery, elementary, middle, high school, and college. God sends us to earth school to nurture our souls. So it's no way that we would have our likes, characteristics, and dislikes formed within 9 months of sitting in your mama's womb. It comes from the number of times that you've been to earth school. So when we die, it's actually graduation. We go back to the creator energy, and we get ready for the next level when we come back again. So that's the intro to me. Check out my book. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we're going to discuss, but I wanted to give you a bit of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And hi, Ms. Kruger. I do not have a book.
Yeah.
No, I think you're good.
Okay.
I do, so to give a little background myself, I am originally from Brazil, moved here when I was 15 and been here ever since. I do a blog called AI Theology, where I really want to explore these issues of technology and theology. But this topic in specific, future inequity, is dear to my heart because as I was going to seminary, I tended to separate those things a lot. So I tended to see kind of Christianity and kind of as this thing, and then there was all this social thing of separate, and that they couldn't, you know, come together. And then I started realizing that those things actually were, that they were a lot more connected than I thought. And at that point, I wanted to hear more the theology of a place where I came from, Latin America, and kind of study more of that. And there wasn't really a class for it, so I had to do a independent study with a willing professor who was very helpful, and really started learning more about this literary and social science movement called post-colonialism. And at that place was really able to kind of learn. The main thing that I came out of it was this idea that, you know, it's not enough to just democratize and seek equality of material beings, but we must also democratize knowledge and even imagination, you know, especially in the future. And that if we don't do that, then we're going to get the same thing that we get today. And so, as we talk about future and equity, I think one of the first and important things to think about that I see is who is talking about the future and who is, whose future are we talking about? And as we expand that for more voices, I think we're going to have a better future.
So, what is something that from the conference so far? What is something that you might kind of look at as a challenge you would want to offer to the conference itself? We started out saying, okay, we want to open ourselves to challenge. So how do we? Let's start with this conference that we've had a lot of incredible dialogue today. We've had a lot of incredible talks. We've had a lot from people about it being empowering and affirming and necessary and needed and so forth. What's a challenge we could kind of run with, though, going forward and trying to keep challenging and evolving how we do this?
Well, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. It's always there, but nobody wants to talk about it, and that is race. Racism in the United States, caste system in India, class systems, these are at the root of everything that we do. In the United States, race is the foundation of all systems, institutions, right? So with that being the case, to not talk about equity and race and we the people is being disingenuous, and particularly in the Christian community. God is not a respecter of person. And if you believe in God, you would look at all people as being equal to yourself. There would never be an instance where you would look at another person as being less than. God does not make less than. And if you profess to be a believer and lover of God and Jesus, there's no way you would look at people of color as being less than anything but your brother or your sister. But I don't see that. So talk is cheap, right? You can talk, you can make your mouth say anything, but it's your actions that actually speaks, right? So there is a study, Pew Foundation did a study, found that 75% of all white people have absolutely no people in their social network that are not white. And for people of color, we're not in the social network because white folks don't want us in the social network. It's not that we don't want to be there. It's not that we are not allowed. So we have to really address it, and I think churches, like I said earlier, is the most segregated time, and it is. So we were initially going to talk about Black Panther, right? And we had a discussion backstage because even the title was offensive to me. Dreaming of a future. Well, Black Panther for my community really is not fictional. It's actually a legitimate African true story long before America was discovered, if you will. Mansa Musa, the king of what was West Africa, Time says he had over $400 billion. And his work was the beginning of technology, medicine, innovation. So when I see things like, quote, the first African American to do this and the first African American to do that. And I'm like, if you don't learn truth and stop trying to profess that we are just arriving, everybody came from us. So the entire narrative is a lie. And that's where we must start telling the truth. And so we discussed that, dreaming, that's what the slave master used to tell us. My ancestors, they would say, you're going to get yours when you go to heaven. No, I need mine now. It's not about later. So equity is making sure that all of God's children are treated equally and fairly. And so socially, right? If you know me, if we sit down and have dinner and talk, you're going to love me. I will be your friend, trust and believe. You cannot just believe something somebody told you or something you read. You have to develop a relationship with me or somebody that looks like me, right? So once that happens, if something is going on, you're a part of a group making laws or making decisions. If something comes up, you'll say, well, Dad, that might hurt Cheryle. That might hurt her community. What did anybody think about how this would affect someone in the African community or the African American community? So if you don't have a relationship with someone other than someone that looks like you, you would never ever think of someone else when you're making decisions. That's just a natural thing. But race is a made-up construct. It's not real. It's not based on science. Science is that we all bleed red. That's science. So that means there's only one race, human, and we have to operate in that vein. It should not be, as I said to you earlier, most of us wake up every day having to finesse just being alive and a human, right? Am I right or wrong? You have to deal with stresses. You have to work out everyday life. Well, for me as an African in America, I have to wake up and be human and finesse that. But I also have to finesse whiteness every day. I have to finesse that. So that's a duality of me being a human in the world. And that's the same for my entire community. So imagine that. Imagine all of the things you have to finesse just being a human. Double that. And know that's how we have to move in this world. And to not take our issues or concerns serious is only because you don't know us, right? That you don't have anybody in your social circle that you love or care about, which would make you think of us. Okay, I'm off my soapbox.
That's great. Elias, do you want to respond to that or offer a challenge to the conference as a whole?
Well, I think first, thank you for expressing that and helping my own education into kind of how to, I think sometimes one of the things that we take for granted is sometimes it's not what you're saying, but who is doing the same. And I think that's where, I'm learning to be more careful. And learning more. And so I appreciate you having the courage to say that. I take that as a learning. And I hope that this can be a challenge to all of us, to listen to others, to the ones that do not look like us, the ones that maybe the socioeconomic background, other genders. I mean, if there's any challenge, I would love to see more women on stage. Maybe next year we'll start seeing, especially in the technological world, it's very much male and white male. And so the technology we have is coming out from that specific group. So I really, I guess my hope and prayer for Christian transhumanism is that we can also help democratize this process of technology making so that there are more people doing that of all races and ethnicities.
There's something that you said, Cheryle, about dreaming, right? Being this, in essence, being used in a way to disempower people, right? And I think this is something that a lot of us are aware of in Christianity as a whole, that for a long time we've heard a lot of things that were like over yonder, like over in the glory land, but used in a way that was to cut off our ability to do something positive in the world now. And I think that's part of the crucial aspect of what I see us doing in these kind of conversations, is trying to heal that divide. Because, yeah, as mentioned earlier, Jesus' prayer that he taught his disciples was, your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. It's not a separation. It's not that one day heaven will be perfect and that's enough. It's actually that our role in the world is to make earth more like heaven now. And I think that's for me, one of the most crucial and critical discussions in my conversations with other people of faith. It's important that we're empowering and not disconnecting people from the future, from God, from heaven, from all of these things.
And learning other cultures. That's what Nanak, my friend, he's here, and he's from India. And what we're doing is gathering people from all different cultures that we can go around the country and have sessions where we sit down, talk like we're talking now, break bread together, and really get to learn at least basic things of folks' culture. You know, there are some things that can be offensive that you don't really know is offensive because you don't know the culture. Just respecting other cultures, just as you want folks to respect you and your culture, because all cultures make us wonderful, you know. And I love various foods, and folks always say, girl, you eat anything. Yeah, I do, because meat is meat, plants are plants. It's just have different seasonings. I love that, and I think breaking bread together is a perfect way to start learning each other and cultures. And I just challenge all of us to do better about getting to know folks. You know, we might sit in a cube next to somebody of color, but you really don't know that person. You know, that's just all surface neighbors, you know. There are people right around you that you can actually reach out and get to know things and be able to ask questions. Like if you have a question about me or my culture or what I believe, I'll be more than happy to tell you, you know.
Anything you want to jump on there?
Yeah, no, I think completely agree. And then adding to what you're saying, Mike, I'm so glad that we got to talk about Elias, who's becoming kind of my theological hero lately, and I think should be mandatory for all seminaries. And ATS, if you're listening, please do that, make it a requirement. And I think one of the things that he says that I love is that he says, for many years Christianity has taught us to love God but kind of hate the world, and that he was proposing us to that Christianity needed to change and to start loving the world. And I think that movement is yet to come. That it's not just, the world is not just a mission for us to capture people to the boat of salvation, but that the world in itself is to be loved, and that includes all humanity and our environment. I mean, it's everything.
Yes, and so on that, we're talking about technology. So I've covered my beliefs and all of that, but technology has also hindered us. That we have generations of people who have absolutely no social skills, no interpersonal or intrapersonal skills. Social skills is innate. That's something all of us have, but it has to be cultivated. I have lived enough decades such that I have social savvy, right? But the cell phone, the smartphone, has made many generations dumb to what makes us human. Being able to communicate, being able to read nonverbal cues. All of that is part of being socially savvy. So I've developed a app that I released Wednesday, the prototype, but what it does is ask you, what is your per savvy score? 1 star to 5 star, and it scientifically, using AI, goes through and asks you various questions and then give you a rating, along with a strategy of how to improve your rating. It also provides you to be able to connect with folks who can help you along the journey, communities, all of that. But it's for us to take charge of our future, because this is our future. And if we keep going at the rate we're going, we will be raising robots. And part of being a Christian and having empathy is having social skills, because if you don't have those, or interpersonal skills, you don't know how to interact with, other people. If you're, like I tell folks, some of these young folks will be changing my depends. So I need to make sure that they have empathy for me and many others of age. But I do believe technology is wonderful, but we have to make sure we stay human, that we stay connected to one another, and realize those things that are taking us awry, taking us astray from what we have to have as Christians, as spiritual beings.
Yeah, totally. And I think that your point about the fact that social media and so forth, there's a well-known saying, technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral. And that not neutral thing is critical, because social media changes so much about how we interact with each other. It changes our relationships, it changes our world. And so the way to deal with that is not to pretend as if nothing has changed, right? So we have to adapt, we have to learn to overcome many of the challenges that are brought up along the way. And that's something we miss out on if we just get it's neither good nor bad. We have to understand it's not neutral either, right? It doesn't leave us alone. We have to keep updating the way of engaging the world.
I think to add to that, I really hope that we start changing our own relationship with technology as this other thing that we use to accomplish goals, as part of who we are. It's an extension of who we are, which is exactly, it is an extension. And as we do that, then it becomes not just is it being used for good or bad, but what is it reflecting? And start asking deeper questions. I think a lot of people welcome technological change. I think the problem is that there's a lot of anxiety about the speed and the impact of change that people have no control over. And that's what's causing anxiety. It's not the technology itself, but the speed and the uneven impact of it that's making people... I would even say that it's probably one of the untold sources of the rise of populism in the world right now, is the anxiety brought about by technology change, that because can't be dealt head on, then now we're blaming other people groups, other, immigrant, whatever, because we need to find blame somewhere. But the true agent of change has been technological change.
There's something there. You mentioned this idea of taking charge of our own future, right? And so this is something with just thinking about like Facebook or other social media. I mentioned this a lot. We think about that as like, oh, we're just communicating with other people, right? We're communicating with our friends, our family members. Well, we've actually introduced something else in the dynamic. We've introduced an AI in between us. And that AI is optimizing us for some kind of end, right? It's optimizing us, and it's changing our relationship to fit that end. It's asking us, in many cases, to click more, something like that. And what is going to make us click more? Well, a lot of times it's the things that make us angry, the things that make us hate, the things that make us fear. And so we, in many ways, have, without even realizing it, given up agency in our own future, given up agency in our own character development and personal development. And so those things are not, it's not bad to engage in a system that helps you grow into something, but we need to make sure it's the something we want to grow into.
Exactly. And what is happening with technology is we're losing critical thinking. Because we have these devices that does all of the thinking for us. That's why things that come across the internet, social media, that folks are only reading the headline and don't bother about digging deeper to find out, because they've never been taught critical thinking. So nothing resonates with them that, oh, that might not be right. Let me dig a little further. They are not taught that. So while we have technology, critical thinking is being totally left out of education. And these are things that we, as Christians, as believers, need to be on the forefront about, because we see this as being an outcome of our technology. But even as far as relationship with the Most High, That's critical thinking as well. And so if we want our fellows to be smart about making the decisions, the various theological things that we bring forth to them, then we have to ensure that they have the mental processes, critical thinking, to make those decisions so they won't be lambs just following. You see what I'm saying? Yes.
So what are some practices or ways that we can try to address some of these challenges right now, right? We're talking about losing, giving up or having our future taken away from us and needing to, try to take charge of it. We're talking about the fact that our relationships are being shaped by these systems. They're being disrupted by these systems. We're losing some critical skills. Things like that. What do we do about that? What is something practical we could do about that, maybe right now, to address that?
Well, I would say just do an hour, 2 hour of not having technology. Just put it down. Get your kids to do the same. A perfect example was a family reunion. We had young cousins, teenagers in a room, totally silent. I walked in and I'm saying, what is going on? And everybody's like this, just down, nobody's looking. I'm like, don't you realize these are folks you don't even know are your cousins? You could be sleeping with them next week because you're not even looking at their faces to see who they are. So I made everybody put their devices in a garbage for an hour and just start introducing them. And to be honest, once they started talking, they wasn't even concerned with the phones. They started asking, they were total involved, but nobody had ever just made them stop and start talking. So do it at home. That's the quickest way, an hour. Have conversations. How was your day? Folks sit at a table and instead of saying, hey, they text you, hey, dog, what? You can just put your hand on me. Yes, I think that just basic things like that.
Yeah, I think those are great ideas, and I would even add, and something very simple is slow down. I've been, to give you a little bit of my routine, I work from home, and we have 3 kids, small kids. So when they come home from school, and sometimes I take a break, so I'm just came out of a business call, and I come up, and then I have one telling me about their day, my wife telling me something, and the baby, toddler saying something else. And I'm immediately multitasking. And what I realize is that I am nowhere. I am not there with them. I'm not there at work. I am somewhere in the cloud. I don't know which cloud. And obviously the quality of life can be really impaired by that. So slowing down and limiting our multitasking is a huge skill that we need to learn again, that I don't think we ever been this challenged about it. Because what happens sometimes is I will be at work, because again I work from home, and then I will be instinctively getting my phone to catch something, and I'm like, why are you doing this? There's nothing there. You're just trying to distract yourself. And so slowing down. I feel like God telling me slow the F down. It was a little more. He used those words I'm not going to say here, but I think it was a little more poignant to help me really get the message. So slow down.
I like it. I want to go back to something Cheryle said earlier about breaking bread, right? And I'm struck by the fact that this is core to what happens in the New Testament, right? A lot of the New Testament is dealing with this, as the early church is moving into this new global world, right? Interconnected world that they're trying to integrate in many ways. So a lot of the New Testament deals with the tensions that come up there, tensions between Jew and Gentile, right? And it plays out in the book of Romans and all these other places. And what Paul says in 1 Corinthians is he talks about their practice of coming together and eating together, right? And it's a practice where he is insistent, he is adamant that everyone be in this place, eating at the same table at the same time, doing the same thing. And it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor or whatever, you have to think about like all the different people who are coming into this context who would not normally sit at the same table. He's saying, you do this, right? And that becomes the core idea of what in some traditions they call the Eucharist, right? It's what Paul says is how we are forming the body of Christ. That's what it is, to be transformed into Christ. And so I think this is crucial, that the way we connect with each other in community and family and relationship as a society and establish that shared relational bond, that's one of the most fundamental things shaping how our future actually plays out. Making sure it's a positive future that's one, moving towards the kingdom of God and not towards something else, not towards some dystopia.
Yeah, and I mean, to add to that, I think I've had at least a few of you that I have met in Facebook, and now today I met first time face to face. And so part of me is like, man, if there was no social network, and most days I regret that it exists, I probably wouldn't have known many of you, and we would have still met here, but there wouldn't be that introduction that we now have. So there are ways in which, again, when we start being wise about how we use those things, they can actually enhance our relationships rather than just take it away. As long as we are, again, breaking bread, and those things are leading to that.
Absolutely. So I know, like, there's so much to be talked about here, and I feel like we've only just kind of scraped the surface. I hope that I hope to see all of us back here next year, and I hope to keep kind of digging into this stuff in a bigger and more thorough way. As we kind of move into, I think we're supposed to have some breakout discussions next, and so maybe we could think about how we want to do that, because I'd like to take some of these conversations and engage with you all. What would be some final comments you would want to offer, or challenges or questions that you want to kind of put in the room?
My question for all of us is how we can be allies to the human race. Because if we start thinking of how we move as being ambassadors for the human race, then I think we will move appropriately, and the Most High will guide our steps in how to make it happen.
I can't add anything to that. That's great.
Well, thank you both. Thank you so much for being here and being part of this conversation. And I know we said we wanted to make us all uncomfortable. I hope that.